I'm gonna be real, guys. I didn't know you could do this until I did some more research, and I found out it has happened before, but not usually for good reasons. Ubisoft announced, and I'm not joking, roughly 10 minutes before their earnings call, they announced a postponement of the results announcement that you can see here, November 13th. Ubisoft announces the postponement of the release of its results for the first half of fiscal year 25 to 26. Ubisoft has requested Euronext to halt trading of its shares and its bonds from the market open on November 14th, 2025 until the publication of the results in the coming days. Ubisoft will inform the market on the date on which trading will start. And this is kind of insane. It's a little crazy. I think partially because in the US, this is just not really a thing that ever happens. You can technically request that your stock be halted from trading. That happened with like the GameStop stuff, if you remember that, where there was a short squeeze and then a bunch of hedge funds and stuff requested that they halt trading on it because it was getting way out of hand and they were losing a lot of money. But in European markets and even Australian markets and stuff, this type of thing has happened before. It's just very, very weird because basically what was supposed to happen is November 13th, Ubisoft was supposed to get up on stage, have the executives explain how much money they made, how much money they lost, where they're going, what the direction for the company is, what their outlook is, how much money they expect to make next year, et cetera, et cetera. It's just the general communication with investors of what's going on. And it's normally like, these are regulated things. This is not something that you can just like, we're good. Like, you can't do that. Okay. You just can't. So for them to just announce 10 minutes before it was supposed to happen that they're just like, they're not going to do it is weird. It's weird. Like I said, it's happened before. On my tweet, I sent a follow-up where I did include an example. This was an example back in August. CTM delays earnings, suspends trading amid accounting fix. Corporate Travel Management, which is that company, delayed the release of its 2025 fiscal year results as it addressed an auditing issue with its financial reporting. And you can see that they say CTM said its auditors informed the company on August 22nd, in this case, 5 days before the announcement, that it might need to adjust the timing of when certain revenues and costs were recognized between the 2025 fiscal year and prior reporting periods. And they say the adjustment is isolated to the European region only. In their case, they say it's to increase prior year's earnings and reduce current year's earnings. And so in this case, it was like, because these big companies, people are like, oh no, they're audited. Every major company, like seriously, anybody that is dealing in the million range or hundreds of millions, certainly billions, they have what are called voluntary audits, where they have an auditing company come in and regularly audit their books to make sure there's not like accountants stealing money or stuff like that. So they have an outside firm review all of their books regularly, like once a quarter or twice a year. And in this case, they were reviewing that company's books and found an issue where they thought that maybe this money was being claimed here and it should have been claimed there because of European standards. So they delayed the earnings until later when they could fix it, get the books all in line with what is required by regulations. With this, there's no indication of what the cause is or why they're doing it. It's just an announcement that they're not going to be doing their earnings and they want their shares to be halted until they can share it. And the reason they requested the halting is because when you announce that you're not going to share your fiscal financial results, it's not something investors love. Okay. So what would likely be happening right now is the share price would just drop off a cliff because everybody's like, oh God, something's terribly wrong. But that brings us to the point of speculation, wild speculation. Okay. What does this actually mean? It could be a number of things. It could be that Ubisoft, just like that other company, had an audit being done and they determined that there was something messy because bear in mind, in the last few months, Ubisoft has started off Vantage Studios, which is a new entity that they own most of, but is not technically Ubisoft. And that separate entity now owns and manages its biggest IP like Assassin's Creed, Rainbow Six, Far Cry. And so for them, I'm sure dealing with that financial trickery is a mess. I don't know why you would need to delay it 10 minutes before the earnings call, though. That to me suggests that this came down to the literal wire, right? So here's my tinfoil hat speculation, okay? Okay. Everybody, tinfoil hats on. Tinfoil hats on. Okay. What does waiting till 10 minutes before suggest to me? It suggests to me like Ubisoft did not want to postpone earnings, but made the call right before because they didn't have a choice. Something forced their hands. This is not something you do willingly, right? What may have happened, and again, this is just speculation. I don't have any secret information. They're telling employees that it's just to adjust some stuff, blah, blah, blah. But what I think happened is that there's been debates and negotiations for the last year with Tencent, and there's another big player that's given Ubisoft a lot of money very recently, the Saudi private investment fund that bankrolled the brand new Valley of Memories DLC for AC Mirage. That group is now also financially involved with Ubisoft. And I would not be shocked if there's been some discussion internally of taking Ubisoft private with the partnership of the Guillemot family, but basically either Tencent or the Saudi private investment fund. I would personally suggest it's more of the Saudi private investment fund that's doing it because Tencent is already involved and is already locked up. They signed several agreements that made it so they can't take on more shares until a certain date. And they signed that with the Guillemot family like a year and a half ago. So my sneaking suspicion is that the Saudi private investment fund guys were telling Ubisoft, no, we can save your reporting because maybe they're going to announce liquidity issues. They don't have enough cash to pay their leases for the next year, whatever it may be, some major financial issue, which we know Ubisoft has been dealing with. And they've been relying on outside parties to come in and bankroll the fix, whether it's Tencent or the Saudi private investment fund. And I think that probably the Saudi guys were like, hey, we can fix this for you, but we want X, Y, and Z in exchange for bailing you out of this problem. And Ubisoft was trying to play hardball. Maybe they're saying Guillemot family has to leave. You guys have screwed this up. You need to go. And the Guillemot family is like, no, we're not going to do that. This is our company. We're not leaving. And so the Saudis called their bluff. And the Ubisoft guys were like waiting until the last possible second, until 10 minutes before the earnings call, and said, screw it, postpone earnings, we'll negotiate. Because whatever they were going to share in this could be very problematic. Because basically I'm suspicious and I'm thinking that maybe it's that they have liquidity issues, meaning they don't have enough like cash on hand for the 20,000 employees they have. And so they were relying on a cash influx from the Saudis or from Tencent. Either one of those or both were playing hardball and saying, nope, we're not bailing you out again until we get what we want here. Ubisoft tried to call their bluff. They called Ubisoft's bluff. They canceled the earnings, and right now they're negotiating and finalizing the deal for whatever is going to happen. Whether that is a buyout, whether that is taking the company private, similar to what just happened with EA or is about to happen with EA. But that's my sneaking suspicion, is that this was a moment where Ubisoft execs were trying to call the bluff of the people that they were working with for a quick cash infusion, and they didn't realize that their bluff was also being called, and so this is what they're doing. So my guess is in the next few days they will do an earnings announcement. They will resume trading of shares, probably, unless there's like an immediate buyout or something. But I think when they come back, the announcement is going to be probably that the company's being taken private in partnership with the Saudi private investment fund. That's my expectation. What do you think? What do you think? I can't think of another reason why something like this would need to happen, because this is so weird and so severe. It's a big deal, frankly. It's a big deal. It should not be taken lightly. For sure. The other piece of speculation, which is much less exciting, is that it might have something to do with the Far Cry 7 leaks that happened the day before. So they basically had a bunch of stuff leak about Far Cry 7 right before this would have happened. And so maybe they postponed earnings to be able to go and answer this. That to me is seeming less and less likely, because even if like all the leaks are true, they could just come on the earnings call and be like, yeah, we're not going to address leaked information. Like, you don't really need to delay your earnings, that is like code red last resort. You know, that's like last resort. So it makes me think that there's something bigger happening, but time will tell. They only say it'll be in the coming days. So, I mean, today's Friday and it hasn't happened yet. So I'm guessing top of next week, they're going to be negotiating through the weekend or something. That's my guess, but that's my prediction. He took my thing.